My name is Barry Rice. I served in the Army from 1965 until 1972. I served in Vietnam in 1968-69. I had gone through Infantry Officer Candidate School. I served with the 1st Air Cavalry Division, 2nd of the 8th, as a platoon leader / company commander until I was seriously wounded and medevaced back to the States via Japan. After graduation from Officer Candidate School, I was assigned to be a TAC officer to put other candidates through Infantry OCS at Fort Benning. And we had some other TAC officers that had already been and come back, and certainly you listen to their stories and their excitement and their dedication to serve. Certainly there was a lot of fear, and you have to kind of throw out the BS with some of the stuff that you'd learned in Officer Candidate School. And I finally got my orders, and first was to go to jungle school in Panama, which in many ways that was as bad as walking through the bush in Vietnam. It was tough, but then after jungle school, then I went, and I was ready to go. Well, we went over on a very, very long stretch TWA. It was filled with servicemen going over. Fortunately or unfortunately, I flew over, seated right beside me with a gentleman that I had graduated from high school with, and he had gone through OCS in a different class, but he went over, and we get over Saigon, and you know, the TWA starts spiraling down, and you know, we're thinking, because they hadn't warned us why, and of course they didn't want to get shot out of the sky. And there was some fear there, and then certainly as we deplaned and you meet some of the soldiers that were going home, the ribbing and the kidding, you know, that we faced. Then we went to 90th replacement for a couple days till they assign you to the unit, and then I got my orders for the 1st Cav. Once Bill and I landed and went to 90th replacement, he was assigned to the 9th Infantry Division, and I was assigned to the 1st Cav. I mean, we were both there. We were excited to get to our units, fearful, scared, but we were ready to go. I was the infantry platoon leader first for several months. I got wounded the first time, and but that was fixed in country. It was just shot through the leg. Painful, but I recuperated, and then I went back out in the field with the same unit, still as a platoon leader, and then unfortunately the company commander made the supreme sacrifice, and I was promoted to company commander. At that time, I think we had 97. 18 to, well, my first sergeant, I think he might have been 31. So I was 24 at the time, and of course they're calling me the old man, and I called them my kids. I mean, that was just the nature of the Army, but you know, calling a 18-year-old, you know, a kid, it was done out of love. High, but a lot of fear. And any time that we would go back to a forward fire base, certainly it was like downtown Saigon for us. It was just a bunch of bunkers with sandbags, but they did have a bladder where they could hang up where we could take a shower. But it was neat. Yeah, it's a big bladder. I mean, that they bring in from a Chinook or sometimes from a Huey, and then they'd hang it up on, and we could stand under it and take showers. Cold, but it certainly felt good after being out in the bush for a period of time. Whenever we get back to a forward fire base, sometimes we'd be out in the field for maybe only a couple days. Other times we'd be out in the bush for maybe up to 10 days. And, you know, we'd take care of our hygiene. You could always get water out of stream or something if we happened to be near one, and at least wash our face. We primarily did search and destroy type missions wherever the Snoopies would go over at night and find body heat, and they knew where we were. If the enemy happened to be near water, then that's where we would go. If not, they'd pick us up and take us somewhere else, and we'd land, and hopefully it was a safe landing, but other times it'd be a hot LZ, and it could get dangerous at those times. But if you happen to be by water, you happen to be by water. We'd carry a number of canteens with us, and certainly we had to be very judicious in our use of water and make sure we always had our iodine tablets to put in the water canteens. We were able to get the LERP rations, so we didn't have to carry a lot of C rations, but there were times that we had C rations too, so certainly that added a lot of weight. Depending on how much ammunition you're carrying, or grenades, I don't know, 30 up to sometimes maybe 50 pounds. Mine, not necessarily that heavy.
You're talking about?
Take a piece of C4, set it on fire, and put some water in your steel pot, and heat it up and pour it in the bag, and mush it up and let it sit for a little while until it got edible, and it's actually pretty good. Sure. I mean, they would bring, when they would log us when we were out in the field or at a forward fire base, they would bring mail out to us. It wasn't necessarily always up to date, and we'd sometimes get multiple letters from my wife. And strangely enough, I had my 6th grade teacher, Ms. Arnurius, wrote me every day, even if it was a little postcard or something. I could tell by the date. And every day, my 6th grade teacher from my little school sent me a letter, a short little letter, or a postcard every single day that I was there.
Remembering
Yeah, and every time I'd get one, I'd have to smile, because I was, in the 6th grade, I was one of her primary disciplinary problems. But she was also a good friend of my folks too, and they played bridge all the time, but I was a disciplinary problem. I mean, I was only there for one Christmas. Well, I was there for Thanksgiving, Christmas. If we were out in the field, they would try to have us back at least at the forward fire base. If not, if we were out in the bush, it was really kind of a non-event. In our hearts, in our minds, yes, but take care of business. No Christmas trees, no presents, no anything. You had to feel blessed and be thankful in your heart. If we were back at a forward fire base, they would try to get a chaplain to come out, maybe to have a service. Yeah, the medics, they're the most amazing human beings. They didn't really have time for the fighting. They were so dedicated. I hold those medics, all of them, in the highest esteem. They're up on some kind of a pedestal for what they did. Not only for me, because I was a minor thing, but for some of my kids. To watch the medics, and sometimes you'd see them with tears in their eyes, because they had lost someone, and you don't have time to grieve at the moment with the loss of a kid, or with the medic's feeling of loss that he hadn't done everything he could do, but you certainly grieve later, and I still do. Well, first time it was we got ambushed, and I got shot through the right thigh. Luckily, it did not hit the femoral artery or the bone. It didn't even come out the other side. I mean, I got a hole over here, but you know, where it damaged all the muscle and everything. And the main thing I remember about that is how they treated the wound at that time is that daily, twice a day, that old yellow medicated gauze to stuff it in there and pull it out until it grew out. And then the next time we were going in a combat assault, and I was standing on the skids and the helicopter got hit and it blew me off and crushed my legs and couldn't move and got shot several times. And after a period of time, I was very fortunate. A wonderful, wonderful medic. God bless him. And well, anyway, I was medevaced and made it to Japan. Medevac helicopter eventually came in. I think it was about 5 hours later, approximately. The medic did what he could, but we had other kids that unfortunately we lost, and there were some others that were wounded. So I was gonna live, so he didn't need to be bothering with me, and I told him so. So I was good. And then I was medevac back to Martin Army Hospital, where I had a number of surgeries and a lot of rehab in Fort Benning, Georgia. I left Fort Benning from OCS program and ended up back there. As I understand it, they send you to where certain hospitals specialize in certain things, like Kelly Air Force Base is for burn victims. That's also in San Antonio, or it's in San Antonio. I was at Columbus, Georgia. It depends upon the specialty. I remember the first time I called home was from our forward fire base, and underneath a bunch of sandbags and in a hole, using an old prick 25. And of course, the radio RTOs has to switch through, I guess it was Saigon, and have to tell my wife, you have to say over, you know. I called her from Japan. I was in traction and had a bunch of bandages. I wasn't allowed out of the bed. I mean, I couldn't walk, but they brought me a phone and I called her. And first she thought I was lying. I said, no, I'm in Japan and I'll be home, or I'll be at Martin Army. And then we flew into, I think it was Andrews Air Force Base for a night, and then that was a staging area, and then they sent other planes to the hospital you're going to. Well, the surgery, in-hospital surgery, rehab and everything, it was total, because I had to go back for rehab after being released for a period of time. It was about a year. But I was still on duty because I was assigned to do something else, but I still hadn't been released from the hospital because of the rehab. At the time, I had 3 months left on my commitment, and they asked me where I wanted to be stationed. I told them, I don't want to be stationed anywhere, I want to go home. Well, my family was living in Norris, and they said, okay. And they said, you're going to be assigned to the 90th Replacement in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a civil affairs unit, and you're being an advisor to the reserves. I thought, I have arrived. I'm an infantry officer, now I'm going to be advising civil affairs unit. I thought, this is going to be a cush job. And you know, I could drive back and forth to work every day. Wow, I've arrived. But I reported in, and Major asked me what Fort McPherson had told me that I was going to be doing. I said, I'm going to be an advisor of the reserves here, helping you out however I can. He said, wrong answer. He said, you're going to be on duty 24/7, you're going to be a notification officer. So, and survivor's assistance officer. Difficult at best. In my mind, I was notifying the mother of one of my kids that I'd watched die, or that I always had tremendous survivor guilt whenever one of my kids made the supreme sacrifice or was severely wounded. You know, why did I make the wrong decision? Should we have anything else that we could have done that maybe he'd still be living? And in my mind, I was circling back, and I'm now looking into the eyes of his mother, and I'm saying, on behalf of the Secretary of the Army, I regret to inform you, it mentally, it was as difficult, if not more difficult, than actually being in Vietnam. Because how do you protect that mother? How do you protect that wife from the most devastating news that they're ever going to receive? I mean, you know, they kept that young man alive for 17, 18 years, and I got him killed. I didn't, but then the natural instinct of a wife or a mother was, I felt whether they verbalized it, and some did, they blamed me personally, which I was already blaming myself personally, and it just reinforced it, and it was difficult. After the notification is made, survivor's assistance gets involved with working with the funeral home, making sure that no other way to say it, that the body is viewable, because there's times that the casket might be marked only to be viewed by the family, or not viewable at all, because depended upon what had happened to the young man. They might advise strongly the family not view the remains. However, at that time, if a family insisted, not much you could do. But also to help them with any, not claims, but, you know, with their insurance and paperwork, and just provide assistance to the survivors the best we could. It was not our job to comfort at that time. Well, we depended upon the location we were going to, and you never knew how a family was going to receive the news. We would try to make contact with the local authorities to find out, is there going to be violence? Is something going to happen? We would also attempt to make contact with their pastor, and if appropriate, if they attended church, to try to get their pastor to go with us. But it was up to us as the authority figure, so to speak, to make the notification. Okay. And then, but there were times that it was just me and Sergeant Fuller. I developed a severe anger problem, and I wanted to go back to Vietnam. And they said, well, your profile isn't where it needs to be. They said, well, you can go back to Vietnam and sit at a desk. And I said, I'm an infantry officer. I don't sit at a damn desk. And they said, well, you can go ahead and you can not re-enlist, but you can go on indefinite status and go ahead and accept your promotion to captain, and we'll send you to Germany for a short period of time till you're ready to go. Your profile will allow it, and then we'll consider strongly sending you back. And so after a few more months there and doing notifications or survivor's assistance officer, I went to Germany, and after actually a year and a half, they said, no, you can still ride a desk. And because I was on indefinite status, all I had to do was give them 30 days notice and I was out. Okay. I did not really have faith when I was in Vietnam. I certainly didn't have faith making notifications. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma due to the Agent Orange, and was given a short period of time to continue to enjoy breathing. They said a year to 18 months. And I found myself on a beach down in Florida one day, and I won't go through the whole story, but I went through an experience where I literally can see God. I mean, a lot of people say you can't see God. Oh yeah, you can. And from that morning on, my faith has been undeniable, unshakable. I see God in every person, and I try to see God in everything that I do. And I mean, I sin every day, in one way or another, but I am so blessed with everything that God has led me to in my life, primarily my wife, Ann. I was pretty deep into, you want to call it depression or PTSD or bad thoughts about Vietnam. And she has helped me so much. But the bad thoughts, even after finding God, that would still seep in. But we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last week, which was wonderful, just the 20 years, and knowing that we got at least 20, 25 more. But God has given me so much. I mean, with the other physical things that have happened to me, I still receive radiation 3 times a week and will for the rest of my life because of my non-Hodgkin's. And I've had quadruple bypass, pacemaker from the ischemic heart disease, prostate cancer, both hips, both knees. As long as all my sins during the day, if I catch them, I ask for forgiveness, just a quick little whoops, sorry. But I go down to the lake every morning and watch the sunrise come up. I watch God come up and give me a brand new day. Even if it's raining, it becomes daylight, and that's because God is still up there. You might not be able to see him, but in my mind I can see him. And the blessings, and that I just, okay, give them to me. I'm ready for the day. So Vietnam was it was not pleasant. A lot of bad memories. But I have so much admiration for the young people that went over there and did what they had to do and followed orders and fought their hearts out. And unfortunately, we lost too many. And the way we came home is, I won't even go into that. It's just unforgivable. Back, I think it was 2006, might have been 2007, my wife saw a little ad in the paper that the Vietnam Veterans of America were going to meet up at this church. And she knew because I had a cave at the house, and she was just unable to get me out of my cave. And she said, "You're going?" I said, "I ain't." She said, "You're going." And it was about a couple weeks away, and it came to the night of the meeting. She said, "Don't get off your hat, but you're going." I said, "I'm not going." Well, I ended up going. Either that or sleep in the garage somewhere. So I went, and I met some of the members, and they said, well, now we've got a chapter picnic coming up. I didn't want to go. Picnic? You kidding me? So I went home. Told Ann, I said, they're having a picnic. I'm sure you don't want to go because you'll have to make something. She said, okay, fine, good. And we went, and it's been one of the best things that I've ever done, because it's brought me back into contact with not veterans necessarily that I served with, but so many brave individuals that are paying it forward and are giving back so much, not only to Vietnam veterans and their families, but to all veterans. And I've taken on several leadership roles. I was chapter president, vice president of the state, then president of the state for 6 years. Then I stepped back, and just recently I'm state council president again for Tennessee. I've got 29 chapters that I have the honor to be able to work with, and the formation of other new chapters, meet new veterans and their families, and some of these wives that I've met and families that were home during all that time are just remarkable people that they gave so much to, so much heartache, but they were always there. And in spite of our homecoming, they welcomed us, and that just made all the difference. I mean, I want to start a Veterans Against Drugs program. This stuff that's going on in this country, young people committing suicide. The drugs that are available, and certainly maybe the young people aren't going to listen to a bunch of old coots like us, so we want to enlist the support of our younger veterans, and just a well-rounded program to work in schools, work with the police and sheriff's departments, to do everything that we can. How can you go to sleep at night knowing that you haven't done at least one little thing to help? I mean, they say if you only help at one person, well, it's true. If you help one young person not commit suicide because they got hooked on some of this trash, it's a crime. So we're going to be doing that as well. VVA, as I mentioned, we have a national chairman who goes around the country and he puts on several programs. But really there's been nothing, I know, in the state of Tennessee that we've done. We want to work within schools. We want to work within, hopefully, JROTC programs in the various schools, with police and sheriff's departments, certainly with school guidance counselors, to hold programs to maybe assist parents to understanding. With our PTSD town hall meetings that we did, normally we wouldn't have a lot of veterans attend. They're afraid, well, if I go and admit that I have PTSD, I'm gonna lose my gun, I'm gonna lose my job, I might lose my family, so I'm not gonna go. But our audience would be filled with family members. The old saying, little Johnny goes off to war, little Johnny comes home, and it's no longer any little Johnny. How do I understand this? And that's what we would try to help families understand. So if families know that veterans are there for them, and some of our best contacts to work with are some of these young folks that are in JROTC programs. A lot of times they're on a different trajectory and maybe not as involved in drugs because they do have that military type discipline that I wish we had the draft again, frankly. Even to serve in peacetime, just go through it and learn some discipline. And I think that would go a long way toward the help with the drug problem. Yeah, because a lot of their instructors, we have here in this area, we have one particular school that we're working with, and the officer in charge and the master sergeant are tremendous leaders. As a matter of fact, we made them honorary members of Vietnam Veterans of America. They work very closely with us. And VVA has done several programs in their school. They've got some outstanding cadets, just outstanding, and year in, year out. I mean, they graduate, but they've also got a wonderful history of some of their young people who have gone on to just be outstanding members of the community, whatever community they're in. Okay. It'll be a wonderful resource to address some of their peers in their schools. Number one, don't ever forget that we were you at one time. We went through every emotion that you've got. We went through, your parents are the dumbest people that ever walked the face of the earth. We went through, well, maybe the parents do know a little something, and then all of a sudden you are one. So we've been there. We've been the rebels. Yes, we might not have had the drugs, the prevalence of the drugs, but we certainly had the alcohol. And some of my peers when I was growing up made use of it. Unfortunately, some of them continued to use it and didn't. Their lives aren't what they could have been. Some others have. So by applying yourself, and I didn't have a relationship with God then, but if you open your eyes every morning and you've got daylight, it is brought to you by God, who's giving you, number one, tremendous blessings and the most wonderful opportunities to have anything and everything that you are willing to work for in your life. I mean, God might give you a Cadillac with all the options on it, roll up window, I mean everything. He ain't gonna drive it for you. You've got to do the work to enjoy the blessings that he so richly pours out of the sunrise every morning. I believe there's power and blessings in every sunrise. I believe it so much that I wrote about it. I speak about it. I enjoy very much talking about not so much the religion aspect, but God himself, and realizing that Jesus gave his life for us. He absolved us of our sin, even though we continue to sin each and every day. But God is a good guy. I mean, he's just a good guy. It's a good dad to have. And you can see him every morning when the sun comes up, because that is God. And there's a whole story about how you can see God, and I did. To all of the wives, the families, the parents who worried day in and day out, but they kept faith alive in their hearts. And it was a faith that we could feel around the other side of the world. But we always knew that you were there for us. You were there for us with welcoming arms. You were with us at night when we could remember your smiles. We could remember even the tears as you said goodbye to us. And we could envision the tears that we would see when we come home. So thank you. Thank you so very much. You are our bedrock.